The meeting is yours, Robert. Go right ahead.
Okay. All right. First of all, I want to thank everybody for showing up on this nasty evening. All right. And I'm going to allow Blake Benedict to explain the circumstances as it surrounds our meeting we had quite some time ago. But I want to bring you to the forefront, Mr. Benedict. So please, by all means, let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, we're here. We want to sort of revisit the conversation that we started. Well, you and I started the conversation months ago, but the conversation with the committee, we'd like to revisit it. And hopefully we can do a better job explaining what this development is, why we think it's it's a terrific opportunity for the neighborhood, and answer any questions that you all might have, and hopefully we can explain it in a way where it all makes sense to you guys. So again, if we go through the presentation that we did a month or two ago, it sounded like everybody was on board. It made a lot of sense. And then when we started to talk about the folks that were living there, and I think there might be some confusion as to what exactly we're building. I think there was some confusion that folks thought this was a homeless shelter. And to the contrary, it's not. It's permanent housing for elderly folks, and that's what it is. And those units are of a church that's been in that neighborhood for 100+ years, pillar of the community, and we just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. And we submitted our application to HPD probably 2 months ago, and obviously the community board support is something we would like to have. And we're here to answer questions, talk about the development, and see if we can find some common ground.
Okay. All right. I think at this time, it would be notable if I'm going to leave you for last, Ms. Scott, because I really understand your viewpoint and how you courageously want this project to go through from a historical standpoint. But I want to hear from Mr. Finch. All right. I just want him to give me an explanation as to what we're talking about from the development standpoint of view. Mr. Finch?
Thank you very much. And as Blake said, and this is more Blake's development than mine, we're working with the church to create 72 units of permanent housing, permanent affordable housing, permanent affordable Section 8 housing that will allow the church to have a brand new building. The church will own all of the religious facilities and will be the majority general partner in the residential facility. The residential facility will be financed by New York HPD through using tax credits and bonding. It will be for people who live there permanently, who are over the age of 62. And we're assuming, we don't know this, and there's certainly a requirement that it can not only be members of the church who live there. There's equal opportunity and fair housing laws we have to abide by. And it basically locks in a brand new facility to take care of the outdated facility that the church currently has. And I think, as Blake said, the church has been here for over 100 years, and this will lock it in for, under New York state law, at a minimum of another 60 years. And that's what we're hoping to accomplish. And Pastor Scott, who came on board this past summer to be the pastor for the church, has been a terrific leader in this effort, and we're working towards that goal.
Okay. All right. Pastor Scott, the floor is yours.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Um, I just want you to know that undergirding everything that we do, we are with the Finch Group as partners in this venture. But driving everything that is happening with this project is our mission to improve the community, to uplift the community in more than spiritual ways. So that takes the form of, for example, this community has a housing problem, and especially when it comes to seniors who may not have relatives with whom they can live. And I know as I was speaking to Mr. Benedict today, I said, I can live in that facility because I am over 62 and I may not qualify in terms of the income levels and so on, but certainly my mother would. So this is something that I think we can all relate to, and the fact that those who they're coming together, not only getting housing, but there will be a community component. I was just going over the original proposals. There's a proposal for a community center. We were thinking of a daycare center. We're thinking of community space that's available in the building. And the church, as Mr. Finch says, maintains a strong hand in all of the activities and in the development and in the management project and so on. So that's where we are.
Okay. Very quickly, Mr. Bendeck, could you go over the economic portion very briefly?
In what
The rents, the projected rents that you were going to charge with regards to the seniors. It's 73 units and 72 are going to be occupied. One is for the custodian who lives on the premises. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What was the AMI? What exactly were you working with?
Wes, do you have that in front of you?
I do. It's the people living there have to earn less than 50% of the AMI, or the area median income, for the Bronx. And they pay 30% of their income. The income has to be certified on an annual basis. They'll pay 30% of their income for their share of the rent. The remainder of the rent is paid for out of the Section 8 federal rent supplement program. So it is very affordable to the seniors who will live there. It is quality housing, and the federal government picks up the difference. So for a single individual, the rent's probably going to be someplace anywhere between, I'm going to make up a couple of numbers, but between $50 a month and $500 a month for the residents, and the federal government rent supplement program makes up the difference.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now, can we get a quick overview on the prospective job opportunities for people in the community as it lends itself to this particular project, Mr. Bendet?
Well, I mean, what we're gonna have here, when you say job opportunities, first of all, this is going to be this is a $35-40 million project. So there's a big construction component to this, that there will be opportunities for the neighborhood, obviously. On an ongoing basis, we have hired, or we are engaging with folks in the community. Self-help is one of them that will be a tenant service provider. There's opportunities there. We have a management company. In fact, 5 of the members of the church, the Wakefield Grace United Methodist Church, are employees of a management company that we've engaged for this project. So the buy-in is there within the community. But this is a big development, and there will be opportunities for folks for sure.
Okay.
The developer, excuse me, Robert, but the construction company is local, and this is a prevailing wage development. So all the construction workers, which will be approximately a 2-year construction period, will all receive prevailing wages. And as I said, the general contractor is local to the area, as well as the architect has developed other similar housing programs in the Bronx.
Okay. To make a long story short, I will be able to refer individuals who have their OSHA 10 license in the direction of this particular local general contractor. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and we would hope you would.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now I'm just going to go to my partner, Deacon Brown, just to see if he has any questions pertaining to what has just been discussed. Okay, Deacon?
Yep. Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm very concerned about these developers coming into the Bronx, and tell you one thing, when we give them the green light, they deviate from what they tell us. However, I'm glad to hear that the Bronx will have a say in jobs development, also occupancy. And we got to hold these developers' feet to the fire.
Okay. All right.
If I might, let me assure the deacon that the church is here. And as we've said before, we are a 51% partnership in this venture. And so it means we're the majority. And there are church laws, rules, guidelines, and resolutions that will apply to everything that is done. Among them is worker justice, if you're concerned about that, inclusion, integration, all of those characteristics are part of this project. And that's where we stand, to ensure that developers will not. We've taken all of the precautions we need to take to make sure that we are truly partners in this venture.
Okay. I really thank you for that, Ms. Scott, because, we've been misled several times down the road. And to be honest with you, I have a situation right now where I have something being built on 233rd Street, and I'm running into a dead-end street. Now, that has nothing to do with this particular project, but we have to be very careful with all types of development. And in this particular instance, I'm very happy that the church is behind this, because I do believe divine intervention will be urgently necessary. All right. But I want things to be straight up front, which is why I'm going through this. I'm going through the letters, because once you sit down and you say what you say, it positions you and it gives you that fiduciary aspect as far as commending what you're saying and following up as such. So this enables us to go forward in the best interest of community. And that's what this is really about. So, in that regard, I applaud you. Okay.
I appreciate that. And let me say that I'm not new to this is not my first venture in this area. And so I'm very much aware, having been involved in other developments and involved with religious developments, faith-based developments, that I know what has happened to other people. And so I am aware of the pitfalls and will do everything that I need to do to make sure that we're kept we're kept where we should be,
Okay. All right. So what we're interested in trying to acquire, and Mr. Bendet, correct me if I'm wrong, you'd like a letter of support from the board. But like I said to you before, the committee, and I don't think there's a problem as far as the committee, because I think we understand. All right. I'm very sorry that Dr. Burke is not on this call. Some of the circumstances that exist, some of the problems that we've occurred are systemic problems, which have nothing to do with the direction or the course of action that you are trying to portray. So I get that message. It's important that I can convey this to the board per se, all right? Especially when we're talking about the Section 8 circumstances, all right? I personally have no problem with you trying to accrue folks off of the Section 8 roster, all right? That is a very, very large quantity of individuals that are in need of housing. So I somewhat applaud you. However, some folks feel adversarial as far as that is concerned, all right? There are different reasons for everything. But that being said, you do have to assist and help the underserved, because at the end of the day, they have a large part of display as far as any type of adversity is concerned. So we have to be mindful of that. And I applaud you for bringing this forward, okay? Some of the circumstances that exist now, especially as we speak, because I have one of the second largest housing developments in New York City, namely Edenmore Houses, which is now getting ready to be occupied by a non-for-profit. So that being said, all of these circumstances are coming to the forefront. So I completely understand what your intentions are. As long as we remain above board, and I am able to get folks from the community an opportunity to seek employment, and also for some to have a roof over their head, especially our seniors, with the hopes that some of them are veterans. I know Deacon Brown would love that. But in any event, these are very important components based on the circumstances that presently exist within the confines of Community Board 12. So I am going to attempt to seek a letter of support from the body as it lends itself to this particular project. All right. I do believe that, for the most part, you have persuaded this committee, although we're small, you've persuaded us in the direction that you're trying to take things in. And that being said, it's very humanitarian on your part. All right. Deacon Brown, you have anything else to say?
As you know, we have had very bad experience in the past with developers coming to the Bronx, telling us one thing. When given the green light, they deviate completely, make a U-turn from what they told us. So we'll have to hold these people's feet to the fire.
Well, Deacon, let me first of all say that I'm glad that you said that. So I just got back in town, so I am on the call. So Mr. Bendet, Mr. Finch, welcome to Mr. Hall's meeting. So as you know, I'm totally against this project. A, B, I'm looking at the members of the committee, and I don't see what, truth be told, there's a quorum. So unless there's a quorum of the members of the committee, because I only see 2 members of the committee. I mean, I'm an ex officio member, but to that end, you'd have to have a vote from the committee before we offer a letter of support, Mr. Finch and Mr. Bendet. So let me ask some questions. So I've been taking notes as you've been talking, and so I have a couple of questions that I like to ask. So first of all, You stated about the construction company. So who is the construction company that you're looking at using?
DP Group, DP Construction Group,
DB Construction Group. Okay, where are they based out of?
the Bronx. They're
Okay.
they're on Allerton Avenue.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned about prevailing wages. Can you tell me what prevailing wages are?
Well, I do not.
Let me take that back. So I know what prevailing wages are. So I guess the question is the amount. So in other words, what would be the amounts of funds that we're talking about? Can you disclose that?
We can disclose anything and everything. I'm looking through my notes because I don't want to give you false information.
Okay.
The construction contract is $27,224,000. That, let me be very clear, that includes a contingency, so it's a little bit under that. Because this is being funded by the federal government, because it's being approved by New York City Housing and Development, Preservation Development, we have to pay the prevailing wages. Dr. Burke, I apologize. I do not know exactly what all the different prevailing wages are for carpentry, for plumbing, for laborers, but it is a significant number on an hourly basis. And that is an obligation that New York City HPD will write into their approval.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Finch. So, like I said, I mean, I know right now, as I said, I've been traveling on some business, but I'm now back, and so I know that the district manager and I will be meeting with those agencies. So I'll ask them those questions when I meet with them. So
Absolutely.
this question is, and anybody can answer this, whether it be Reverend Scott or you, Mr. Bendett, or you, Mr. Finch. So I'm looking at church members on the call. So right now I'm looking at the people that are on the call, and outside of members of the board, I see a few members of the board on the call. I mean, obviously I see our district manager and our community associate on the call, and some members of the community. You know, I've heard from the Reverend that the church members are on board, but I don't see them on the call. So to me, I think when I've dealt with members before, you know, I've had church members that are enthusiastic about the project and that they would be at the meeting, but I don't see any here. So I guess my question is, where are they and why aren't they here?
I can answer that question.
Certainly.
I can answer that question. Our organization, the United Methodist Church, has a particular kind of structure that is unique to the United Methodist Church. And what happens is that the pastor is fully, all of our meetings are open, etc., and the pastor is fully entrusted in representing the opinion of the members. That's in our law. That's in our church law. I cannot go outside of my members and do something they have not agreed to in a formal meeting, in a formal setting. And so what happens is that I'm entrusted with the congregations for being responsible to represent the congregation wherever. Right now, my lay leader is attending another church meeting, and other leaders in the church are attending other meetings. So the decision was made that I would be at this meeting as opposed to other meetings, for example, right now.
So to me, it would have been, to me, more advantageous to schedule a meeting when your other church members would have been here to back up what you're saying. And so it's not that I'm disputing what you're stating, Reverend Scott. What I'm saying is that if it were me I would have made certain that my church members would have been on the call as well, because I have a problem with that. So let me ask this question, and this is again for you, Reverend Scott, or you, Mr. Bendetta, or you, Mr. Finch. So I don't know if our housing chair has told you this, but if he hasn't, I'm going to inform all of you. So one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to improve our community, right? So in that we're trying to improve our community, not only do we want more economic development, but we want more quality housing. And I know you stated quality housing, but the key word that you guys have is affordable, and that's the word that I have a problem with for a multitude of reasons. So let me ask this question, and again, that's why I am, as chair of the board, against this project. And as I said before, we can go from there. And I'm sure a lot of my board members feel the same way that I do. So can you answer this question? Why is it, again, and it's not that we are averse to housing. All right. So let me say that first and foremost. And let me also say that your design is an excellent design. That's all great. Why does this have to be Section 8? Why can it not be market rate? And let me tell you why I'm asking that question. The reason that I'm asking this question is because, as you've heard Deacon Brown say, as you've heard my second vice chair, Mr. Isaac, say in the chat, and others, is that we have a preponderance of quote unquote affordable housing. All right. And so I mentioned that in the last community board meeting that we had last week, is that what the board may have seen as affordable a few years ago is a lot different than what the Department of Housing Preservation and Development may see as affordable, or what you yourself may see as affordable. So the word affordable can be interpreted as different types of entities for different types of constituencies. And so that's the word that I have a problem with, was affordable. So, and the deacon has already mentioned the bait and switch. So I'm not going to sit there and belabor that point, because the deacon has already done it eloquently. And so the one thing that deacon said is holding your feet to the fire. And as long as I sit in the chair, that's exactly what's going to happen. So to that then goes to my next question. Why is it that if you're going to propose that we give you a letter of support, which right now we cannot do because we technically do not have a quorum of the committee, why is it that it can't be a condo or a co-op for a senior? Why can't it be market rate housing for a senior? I think that because of the type of clientele that we're trying to bring in, and as I said, the district manager and I have had this conversation on numerous occasions, for what we're trying to do in improving the quality of life for the residents of our community, why is it that it has to be quote unquote affordable? So any one of you can tackle this, Mr. Bendette, Reverend Scott, or Mr. Finch. That would, to me, you would then sell me a lot better if you were to make it a condo and or market rate versus quote unquote affordable.
Let me try.
I'd like to go first.
Go ahead.
I'd like to go first because, and I'm going to take care of one aspect of this. And so the aspect I'm going to deal with is the missional aspect of the church. The church is not a business. The church has a spiritual mission, and that is what drives us, and that is what drives anything that we do. We approach it first from what our mission is, and our mission is to take care of those who are least able to take care of themselves. So from the spiritual aspect of things, that is our mission. Our mission is not to make money. We are a religious nonprofit. And so our mission is to take care of the most vulnerable people in society, the people who nobody else wants to take care of. We take care of those people. And that's what's driving this from the spiritual aspect, from the missional aspect of this project. Obviously, we have to have a building that is licensable, that we can gather people in. That's part of the reason that reason comes together. So we were in a building that was falling apart. We needed to have a building so that we could do ministry out of that base. And then we also saw this as an opportunity. I'll let Mr. Bendett and Mr. Finch talk about the economic aspects of this and the approach for the funding and those kinds of things. But I want you to know that central to this is mission.
Thank you, Reverend Scott. And Reverend Scott is in charge of the church. And everything she just said is what is driving and motivating this. Our company was brought in to make a development happen that would allow the church to remain in this location, as I said before, for a minimum of the next 60 years. So to go back to one, Dr. Brooke, to go back one time, the church, through something called the Wakefield Grace UMC Housing Development Fund Corporation, will own 51% of the general partner. The board of directors of that entity are the current chairperson of the lay leader of the church, another gentleman who is another lay leader of the church, and Reverend Scott. They have all signed documents and filled out forms to New York City HPD supporting this program. That is all on the record. Please feel free to check it.
Let me ask you this. I'm sorry, Mr. Finch. Can you send me where I can find that link? I don't know if you can put it in the chat or send it to.
Absolutely. If you can wait till tomorrow morning, I would appreciate it. But if not, we can probably find it and get it out tonight.
Well, no, tomorrow morning will be fine.
It's the application that was submitted to, and the what we in the business is called HDFC, the Housing Development Fund Corporation, which is a requirement of New York City and New York State. All that's been filed, and I will get that to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
The next step is the church itself will own 100% of part of the building and be the 51% general partner of the residential component. So they will control the whole thing. The residential side of this has an estimated total development cost of approximately $38.6 million to build 73 units. New York City provides a per unit subsidy of $125,000 per unit if you build elderly housing. Without that, as I said, the cost would be $529,000 per unit. There is not a market, no matter how much we may want to have a market, to sell these units or to rent these units with a cost basis of $529,000. The reason this works financially is because of one, as I said, what's called the SARA program, which is a loan program, soft debt, almost a grant from the city of $125,000 per unit. And then they give you something which are called 9% low-income housing tax credit. It really means that you will get a tax credit equal to 90%, 9% times 10 years, 90% of your costs. And you can actually sell those tax credits primarily to banks, big banks, for roughly 85 to 90% of your total development cost, which means the mortgage you have to carry on this building, the long-term mortgage, can be relatively low, which will allow the rents that the federal government is supporting and allow the individuals who live there to pay a modest amount to live there. They have to qualify under certain income restrictions, by the way. And that's how the numbers work. This is New York City. New York City costs are extraordinarily high. And this is a very tight site that doesn't help with the So in looking at how do we preserve the church's future for 60 years, this pillar of the community for 60 more years, minimum to 60 years. And by the way, I'm 73. I'm guessing it when the 60 years runs up, I may or may not. Well, I'm not going to be around, right? We all know that. That's why we structured the transaction this way. But we, the Finch Group, we work for the church. Our job is to produce a development that the church can be proud of. B, as Pastor Scott put so eloquently, is their mission to assist people of limited means who need their help. Now, I can't sit here tonight and tell you what percentage of those people will be church members. There's no way to know. I know there are various preferences in selecting residents because there'll be an overwhelming demand for the number of units. We know that. And there are preferences for people in the local community. But there's no way I can sit here tonight and tell you 2 years from now, hopefully 2 years from now, how that will work. But everything I just told you is a requirement of New York City and New York State law and of the Internal Revenue Code. And Deacon, we have no option in the world, not that we want one, but we have no option in the world to veer off of that commitment. If any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer.
Well, again, Mr. Finch, I appreciate, you giving me the numbers. That, it helps understand why the application was submitted as such. And again, so some of my questions is really still for Reverend Scott. So, because Reverend Scott said this is, the mission of the church. And again, every church is responsibility if they're Christian or even if if they follow Judaism or Islam or any other major religions of the world, is not only belief in a higher being but helping others. And so again, I don't think if you were to ask any of my board members if we were averse to that, I think that the answer would be no, because I think that's where the community board as well as the church is aligned. So I don't think we have an issue of that. So I guess my question is, if I have a couple of other questions. So, and somewhere in the conversation, the Reverend said that there are precautions that she mentioned, and I forgot the context of that, so I'm going to skip that. But she also said that there are other ventures that she had, because my question is, what was the model that you used to come up with this? So I did. And the reason I asked that is because I looked at your site. I looked at what the church has done in the past. And so my question is, what model or what entity did you use to model this proposal? And this was for, again, Reverend Scott.
Okay. As was said, I came on board this past July as the former pastor retired. And so I was brought in from Brooklyn, and I spent most of my life in Brooklyn. And I was engaged in a project there. And we were looking at several options for development of that site.
What were those options?
Well, the one option was development. It was the process of looking at getting loans. We looked at market rate apartments. We really want to do affordable apartments for like veterans and seniors, and like I said, the underserved population. That's what the church does naturally. I personally was opposed to market rate rents because it meant that it would change the demographic of the area. But I have been involved in this project, and I have been involved with the Brooklyn Borough President's office with developing church properties throughout the borough. So now I come to the Bronx. This is my first experience in the Bronx, but I have that background of experience in Brooklyn.
So let me stop you, Reverend Scott, because you said something that
Years.
caught my attention. So you said that if you're opposed to market rate because that would change the demographic of the area. I need you to drill down on that. What do you mean by that?
Well, the population in that area has traditionally been African American. And the population in that area, those who remain, are older. And they're the people who are being pushed out of housing. So we felt that that population needed to be served because there were the population who could afford housing, the population who could afford market rate housing had a lot to choose from. The people who did not have housing to choose from were the veterans and the elderly and people who are working class members of the community, people with incomes under $40,000 a year. So those are the people who could not afford the rents of the new buildings that were going up. So whatever options we had to help these people, that was the option I wanted to choose. Not that I don't want to make money, but I'm not in the business of making money. I'm in the business of helping. So that's the difference. I think that's the nuanced difference between having a religious nonprofit involved in something as opposed to a for-profit entity. Now, I want to address the two things I want to address. I first of all want to say that our records are open for you, Dr. Burke, that you can see where the members of the church voted on this. So we can go back and we can show you the record.
I would definitely like to see that, Reverend Scott. I would like to see that, Reverend Scott.
We can let you see that because our records are open records, and that's the way our church operates.
Okay.
So that's one thing. The other thing is I'm fully aware of many churches that have been duped by developers. And I seem like a very simple person. And I don't often keep a lot of noise unless I'm called on to keep a lot of noise. But I will tell you, I will be as voracious as a mother hen if I suspect that anybody's trying to trick me. And I have weapons that I don't have to talk about what they are, but I will feel free to use them if I think somebody's trying to wrap me around their fingers or manipulate me in any way. So.
And I would just say, Dr. Burke, this process with Wakefield Grace and the Finch Group has been going on for about 2 years now. The church put out an RFP, maybe it was two and a half years ago, and there were a few respondents. The church selected us. So just sort of backing what Reverend Scott was just talking about, this has been an ongoing dialogue. And to say the least, Reverend Scott and her predecessor have held their feet to the fire every step along the way. We wouldn't be in front of you without their full support. And the development that you saw on paper wouldn't look as good as it looks if we didn't have the pressure that we've had from the church to make sure that we do everything the right way. So I know you need to see the records. You'll see how the church does support us. But the process has been extensive, and it's one we're proud to be here in front of all of you.
Well, again, Mr. Bendet, again, I don't have I mean, obviously the drawings speak for themselves. The quality of the drawings speak for themselves. I mean, again, as you said, I don't have a problem with that, I guess. And that's why most of my questions now are for Reverend Scott, because my question that goes back to the model. So what model, when I say what model did you use? So in other words, did you consult with other members of the community or other churches that may be doing the same thing? I mean, you say you did this before. The reason I asked that question, I'll just tell you, there was one church that came before us that their plans were so thorough that, I mean, everybody was on board with the snap of a finger. And, you know, they, like you, had a mission, but in their proposal, they not only stated what their mission was, but they had the mission in their plans. They said, here's what we're going to do to the committee. Here's how we're going to execute it, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And I mean, it was an absolute flawless presentation. So, Reverend Scott, in your presentation, you stated that, you know, you have a mission to the community. And again, that's all well and good. I think most churches, whether they be Christian, whether they be Jewish, or whether they be of Islamic faith, have that mission. However, I have not seen that in this proposal. All I've seen is housing. Okay. And then, of course, you use the magic word, which I don't like. So again, even with the other proposals, they had, okay, here's what our mission is. Here's how we're going to execute that mission. I haven't heard that. And now this is my second call with the Finch group and with you, Reverend Scott. So again, so some clarity is needed.
All right, I am willing to sit and explain certain things to you, because all over all of the documents that we have, and there's not just this document, this is not the only document, there's a context for this. And everything that we do states our mission very clearly. Now, whether or not in this particular document we outline step by step, like you said, exactly what we're going to do and in exactly what sequence, no. But I can assure you that over all of the documents that govern the church and that are produced by the church, our mission is clear. And it's broken down into particular sections having to do with each category of operation, each category of mission, of ministry. So we have housing ministries, that's one thing. We have ministries of justice, like we have prison ministries, we have other ministries like that, and each one connects to the general mission. So it's within the context, and you know, I can show you the other church documents, which are not new; they are very old.
Well, I guess what I'm looking for is something different, but let's talk, because I don't want to keep holding up the meeting. So, again, you know where I stand, and again, not that I don't appreciate the project, and so I'm not as convinced as the housing chair is of you know, the you know, why this is needed. So again, that's just my opinion. And so that's where I stand. But I do appreciate, Mr. Finch, you giving me more of an explanation, as well as you, Mr. Bendet, for, you know, giving some of the explanations, because again, I've been writing things down. So I think what I need to do is some homework. So I need to do some homework on this, and then get answer a question. So I'm done for now, but thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Can I just ask you a question? If you would write down for me the questions that you have and send it to me via the church. Do you have our address, of course?
Okay, I didn't hear the last part. You broke up. Can you repeat that, please?
Would you send your questions to me either to the church, or you can send it to me by email?
Okay, what's your email address?
My email address is joy in my soul, JoyinMySoul, joy in my soul @gmail.com.
All right, let me repeat that. That's Joy, JoyNINA, MYSOUL @gmail.com.
Yes, correct.
Okay. 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 I will do that because, as I said before, I do have some, questions that we can, shake out, and then hopefully get some answers to. And then, like I said, I think that will, go a long ways.
And
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for your attention.
You're welcome.
Okay, Dr. Burke.
It's fine, Mr. Hall.
Okay, listen, number one, Ms. Scott, your concern is the same concern that I have. I too do not want to be duped when we come to developers, as you previously heard, okay? At the same time, all right, if you do your homework, and I say this to everyone on these screens, you will see, all right, that this community has quite a bit of underserved individuals that need housing, that need an opportunity, such as what you're presenting. That being said, okay, that being said, I applaud what you're presenting in the best interest of helping those who are underserved. Not everyone can afford a mortgage in order to go upward, especially now, going through what we are now enduring. But that being said, I'm very happy that you are able to stick to your guns and say what is in the best interest of the church's mission, which is rightful. But I'm very interested to see, and Dr. Burke, I just want you to know that other church that had that perfect presentation was St. Luke's. And I'm really looking forward to see what they bring to the table as far as their personnel when they start accruing individuals based on what they had said previously. That's still in the forefront, but that too will come to fruition. But it is very important that we take care of those who cannot sit down and actually afford to be upwardly mobile at this present time. This present time more so than any present time. So for that reason, Scott, I really applaud your mission and what you're attempting to do. It's a small step in a direction that's urgently needed. Okay, this could offset apathy in many circumstances whatsoever. So basically, that's it. All right. But on the same note, my major concern is the opportunity that the community has in building this endeavor to make sure that we have opportunities for prevailing wages, okay, things of that nature. It's very important. And I guess I feel I like the idea of how you feel about not being sideswiped. So that being said, hey, Deacon Brown, do you have anything else to say?
Well, I think Dr. Burt has covered most of the questions I wanted to ask.
Okay.
So at this moment.
Well,
all right. Okay. Is there anyone on this call that has any comments, concerns? Yes, Mr. Isaac.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My biggest concern is, how are we affecting the neighborhood? Are we changing the synergy of what's going on in the neighborhood in terms of the parking, in terms of the transportation, anything that's going on in the neighborhood? Are we changing any of that in there? And in terms of prevailing wages, is not whether they have to provide prevailing wages to any contractor that's in there. The question is, are we hiring people from our neighborhood on these jobs? That's the question.
One of the reasons why we selected the general contractor that was selected was because he's local to the Bronx. And he will hire subcontractors, obviously, to do the work. Plumbers, electricians, HVAC folks, laborers, on and on and on. those people we presume will be local because it simply makes sense for them to be local. That local to the neighborhood, local to the Bronx, local to New York City. You know, it really depends on what the bids are, because we still have a budget we have to deal with. But under New York State law, under New York City HPD, anyone who works in this job has to be paid prevailing wages.
Yeah, that's a state law. That's a state law. The question is you have to be on top of the pre-qualification. If you just let the contractor, the GC choose wherever he wants, he could bring in someone from Rockland County. He could bring someone from any Queens. He could bring someone from any place else. So
yes, that's correct. And I mean, there's not a whole lot I can say to provide you with a guarantee, except that in middle of February, the Finch Group will turn 40 years old. We've been doing this type of housing for the last 40 years. We do it with not-for-profits all the time. I happen to be the chairman, lay leader, if you will, of a very large not-for-profit in Boca Raton, Florida, that we're now finishing a very large project. And we've done all the things that I know Pastor Scott, when I was wearing her hat, not a pastor's hat, but a lay leadership hat, to make sure that all happened. I presume that it will be local. I would invite you all to participate, to get names, and we can do that very easily for the construction workers. When we go forward in operations, obviously operations of the building, we will have support services for the residents. We will have people working there to keep the property in good shape. There's not a lot of employees you have once the property is up and operating. One of those individuals, the superintendent, will live on site. The other, probably two other people who work to maintain the building, it makes more sense than not to have them be local. I mean, very local, within walking distance. That's how we operate it. The management company, as Blake and that said, are members of the church. They're local. We're using a support service group that is local to New York, who will provide support to the residents, because let's face it, low-income housing folks, affordable housing folks need assistance on a whole lot of fronts. Everything right now, because of the timing of this moment, you know, and making sure they get out to vote, to food, to support, to everything else. And the church, which has been running a variety of programs for local residents and their kids, will continue to do that in this space. And I think I'm going to
add that, yes, to remind people that the church will indeed be offering other programs that will be open to the community. We will continue to serve the community in that capacity. So you've got not only programs for the residents to support the residents, you've got programs for the community. And I wanted to add the anxiety about whether we would be employing people who come from the community. I can say unequivocally yes, because I will be asking those questions. I will be asking those questions and insisting that the guidelines by which we operate are adhered to. So again, you've got the president of the church watching over everything that's happening to make sure that those concerns that you've expressed are met and not ignored.
And as Wes said, quite frankly, it makes good business sense for the contractor, for anybody who is working on this building or in this building, to have employees that are nearby. So you should expect that that there will be plenty of very local folks that will have a huge say in the success of this building.
Well, okay. Listen, virtually everyone has spoken. Miss Cornell, Beatrice Cornell, you have anything to say? I just don't want to leave you in the dark here.
I do have a question. And I know you went over like finances, but what exactly is like there a cap? What's the criteria for the applications? And I know that you mentioned there's a yearly review. What does that look like? Like what do they need to meet?
Sure. When the building is probably 120 days prior to when it's going to open, we will go out and we will solicit interest of people who want to live in the building. That is the protocol that's called for by HPD. There is a local initiative for people in the local community. There's also an initiative for people who may be homeless to move into this property. And those people will have to qualify on an income level at 50% of median income or less. So everything that Pastor Scott talked about is what comes together on that. Once someone lives there, and keep in mind, they have to be over the age of 62 to live in this building. Once someone lives there, each year they have to go back in and basically tell people what their income is, because the Section 8 program supports people who earn at or below 50% of median income. And we go through what's called an income certification, a compliance, if you will. And then they can, and if they earn more than that, they can still stay there, believe it or not. But they can stay, their rent goes up because their share of the rent they pay is 30% of whatever their income is. So we're expecting most of the people will have Social Security who live there, and they will pay 30% of their Social Security because most of them will be retired in some manner, shape, or form. Not everyone, but most. So that's what I'm talking about on the compliance side.
Okay. I think that kind of wraps things up.
Robert, hold on. There were two questions in the chat.
Oh, go ahead.
One, there was a question in regards to parking. I think John may have touched on that. And there was a question from Deborah in regards to are these 1, 2, 3 bedrooms for how many of each?
Oh,
These are studio apartments.
And there are seven parking spaces inside the building. We do not anticipate, just based upon the income levels of the folks and the age of the folks living there, there'll be more than 7 cars. That number is set by the city of New York, not by us. And we do not anticipate there'll be more than 7 vehicles parked inside the building.
Okay.
Actually,
my question.
I'm sorry, George, there's another question in the chat too that Deborah asked, and she asked, what is the socioeconomic of the community and what's the demand for this type of housing in the community as well? That's in the chat too.
Oh.
I for the socioeconomic.
Yeah. Deborah can go to the city planning website and look it up, because I don't think any of us know the socioeconomic. And the demand is there.
We do know is overwhelming.
Yes. I do have a question in regards to, you stated, maybe incorrectly, Mr. Finch, that there is community preference. My understanding from HPD is that there is no community preference with Sarah.
I believe there is a community preference to a certain percentage of the building, is my understanding. I may be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But I believe that to a certain percentage of the units, there is a community preference. I will double check that. I will get back to you on that statement.
Yeah, I'll check as well. I mean, we've had other development projects, and we were told because it's project based Section 8. Community preference is literally the state of New York.
Well, this Section 8 actually comes from the city of New York, not from the state of New York. So while I believe what I said was correct, I will double check it.
All right.
It could be the city of New York.
Okay.
That's where the Section 8 comes through HPD in this specific instance.
All right. Be that as it may, go ahead, Ms. Scott. Go ahead.
I have some demographics here. These may be a few years old, but you get a general idea. This neighborhood is considered lower middle income. The average income level is lower than more than 75% of all neighborhoods in the country. The average income level is lower than more than 75% of all neighborhoods in the country. Additionally, as 31.5% of the children in the community are below the federal poverty line, the neighborhood has a high rate of childhood poverty. Well, we're not talking about children. Unemployment in the Bronx dipped in April 2015 to 8.3%. This has had little impact on the Wakefield community. This is when the proposal was first written. So I'm quoting from that, and we have some other demographics in the original proposal. So those are some of the things that I will pull up for you, Mr. Burke, so that we can trace the history of it. Because you're coming at it at a point where it has been developed over time. So I want to bring some of that history to our discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Scott. Deacon Brown?
Yes. How would this building, if given the green light, affect homeowners? Would it depreciate the value of the property?
I would hope that it would appreciate it. Here is, I mean, right now, the church is a pillar of this community. It has been, for, as Blake said, for over 100 years. They have done a world of good for the community over the years, especially in the 80s when things got a little dicey. And they're still there today. That's probably, in my mind, the most important thing for the area is the stability that this church has brought to the community. Unfortunately, at the moment, the church's structures, the physical plan is challenged, uniquely and dramatically challenged. Part of this will be to create a new church, a new support system for the church on a physical structure basis that will keep it going for another, as I said before, a minimum of 60 years. That's a requirement under the law. So I think that stabilizing the community is probably the most important item.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Finch. Anyone else? Any questions on the chat, Mr. Torres? Any more questions?
No, for Deborah, I just put in the New York City Planning Department district profile for Community Board 12.
Okay.
So she can click on that if she wants.
Okay.
I just wanted to circle back to what the housing chair said earlier. The ask here was obviously to get your support. And HPD is likely to make a decision on the 9% tax credits in the next 2 or 3 weeks. That's our understanding. And Dr. Burke, you mentioned that you need to do your homework, and I want to offer myself up. I don't want to speak for Wes or Ron Schulman, our consultant at Best Development. We're all here to help you do your homework in any way, because obviously this is time sensitive, and we'll make ourselves available in any way to sort of support your efforts in getting the information you need.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing that, Mr. Bendat, because as I said before, I make the one thing that I prided myself on, and I think the board agrees with me on this, is that we make no decision until we do our homework and make certain that it's great for the board as in the constituents that we serve overall. So as I said before, the one good thing about our district manager is that he's very, very, very excellent at his job. And not only that, he's making certain that I have all the tools that I need to do homework and make recommendations to the overall board, as Mr. Hall's responsibility is to make recommendations from his committee to the board. So to that end, I'm going to take you up on that. Like I said, unfortunately, as I said, I just returned to New York from some travels. And so right now, that'll probably be sometime next week, so that hopefully, we can get together and, make that happen.
Okay. It does appear that the diversity comes from a systemic set of circumstances. I don't think it's the church per se. I think it's systemic, and hopefully that'll be explored, and we'll go forward from there. All right. On that note, I think we need to adjourn. Okay. I found this very interesting. George, I think that'll be about it. We can wrap things up. Okay. Mr. Bendet, we will bring this to the board and we'll discuss the circumstances that prevail, and we'll come up with some type of decision. And please, by all means, give Dr. Burke the statistics or whatever's necessary so that we can go forward. All right. Okay. Any other concerns, comments, questions?
Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank each and every one of you for being on this call. Okay. And once again, Godspeed and be safe. Have a good night.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
God bless.
So George, I'm kind of tired of. Let me give you a call in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, I give you a call in the morning.
Okay.
Actually, I got, like I said, I just got in. My flight got in literally about maybe 3 hours ago. So.
All right.
Yeah.
We have to submit the district needs statement.
Okay.
So I was literally just going to resubmit, maybe make some edits tonight.
Okay.
But I mean, if you want me to hold off, I can do that as well.
Well, I mean, well, actually, because that needs to be in tomorrow.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, because
Right?
it's due tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. I mean, what time? Because I mean, I have something to do first thing in the morning. What time are you going to be in the office until when and when?
I'll probably be there tomorrow's the 30th. Yeah, I should be there. I mean, I don't want to say 9 o'clock, but like between 9 and 10, I'll be there.
Okay, because I know I've got something to do at 8 in the morning,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking maybe sometime in the afternoon, hopefully, early afternoon.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
then
I'll probably be there till like 2 or 3, and
Okay,
then
yeah.
all right.
Okay, that'll
That
work.
works.
I think that works.
All right, cool.
Okay, then. All right, take care.
All right, later.
All right, you too. Bye bye.
Hang on. Okay.